I need the money tonight, my son said, handing me his wife's $275,000 debt. I just nodded. 6 hours later, I was gone. When they came for the money, all they found was a locked door and an envelope. When they opened it, they started screaming. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning. To the moment when everything I thought I knew about my family turned out to be a lie constructed specifically to use me. My name is David Palmer. I'm 51 years old. I manage a small marina operation on the outskirts of Seattle. Nothing glamorous, just boat slips, maintenance schedules, and dealing with weekend sailors who think they know more about engines than they do. It's steady work, predictable, the kind of job people overlook when they're sizing you up at family gatherings, which is exactly what my son Ethan had been doing for the past 3 years. The knock came at 7:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I remember the exact time because I just finished logging the day's fuel receipts and was about to heat up yesterday's chili. The knock wasn't casual, it was urgent. 3 sharp raps, then silence, then 3 more. I opened the door to find Ethan standing on my porch with his wife Jennifer beside him. Their faces had that particular combination of panic and determination that makes your stomach drop before anyone says a word. "Dad," Ethan said, "we need to come in." I stepped aside. They moved past me into my small living room, the one with the worn couch I'd bought at a yard sale and the bookshelf filled with marine repair manuals and paperback thrillers. Jennifer's eyes swept across the space with barely concealed contempt. She'd never hidden her opinion that I'd wasted my life in mediocrity. "Sit down," I said. "We don't have time to sit," Ethan replied. His hands were shaking. Actually shaking. My son, who'd spent his 20s telling everyone he was going to be a real estate developer, who drove a leased BMW and wore watches that cost more than my monthly rent, was standing in my living room with trembling hands. Jennifer cut in before I could respond. "We need $275,000 by tomorrow morning." I looked at her, then at Ethan, then back at her. "You need what?" "You heard me." Her voice was sharp, clipped, the voice of someone who'd already decided I was going to comply and was irritated at having to explain. $275,000 by 9 a.m. tomorrow. I sat down in my reading chair. The springs creaked. "Why?" Ethan started to speak, but Jennifer talked over him. "Does it matter? We're family. You help family." "It matters to me," I said quietly. She made a sound between a laugh and a scoff. "Fine. I made some investments. They didn't pan out. There are people who want their money back." What kind of people?" "The kind who don't take payment plans," Ethan said. His voice cracked slightly. "Dad, this is serious. If we don't pay them by morning, they're going to..." "They're going to what?" I asked. Silence. I've learned over the years that silence tells you more than words. The way Ethan looked at the floor, the way Jennifer's jaw tightened, the way neither of them wanted to finish that sentence. "How did you lose $275,000? I asked Jennifer directly. "I didn't lose it," she snapped. "I invested it. There's a difference." "Not if you don't have it anymore." Her eyes flashed. "Are you going to help us or not?" I looked at my son, really looked at him. His hair was perfectly styled. His shirt probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. His shoes were Italian leather, polished to a mirror shine, and he was terrified. "Ethan," I said, "tell me the truth. Whose money was it?" He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Jennifer answered for him. "It doesn't matter whose money it was. What matters is that we need it back now." "It was his business partner's money," I said. Not a question, a statement. Ethan's face confirmed it. "You took money from your business partner," I continued. "Gave it to your wife to invest, and now it's gone. And the partner wants it back by tomorrow morning or something bad happens." "Something very bad," Ethan whispered. I leaned back in my chair. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Outside, I could hear Mrs. Chen's dog barking 3 doors down. Normal sounds, normal evening. Except nothing about this was normal. "How long have you known?" I asked. 3 weeks, Jennifer said. "And you waited until tonight to tell me?" "We've been trying to handle it ourselves," Ethan said defensively. "We thought we could fix it. We tried the banks, tried some private lenders, tried everything. But nobody will give us that much money that fast. Not with our credit situation." "Your credit situation," I repeated. Jennifer's face flushed. "We've had some temporary setbacks. It doesn't change the fact that we need your help right now." I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I asked the question I already knew the answer to. "You think I have $275,000? "You have the house," Jennifer said immediately. "It's paid off. You could take out a home equity line of credit, or you could sell it. There are companies that buy houses for cash in 24 hours. You want me to sell my house? We'll pay you back, Ethan said quickly. Oh, I swear, Dad. We'll pay you back with interest. As soon as the market recovers, as soon as my development deal closes. Your development deal fell through 6 months ago, I said. The room went silent again. How did you know that? Ethan asked quietly. I know a lot of things, I said, like how you've been using my name to get business meetings, telling people I'm a silent investor in your company, telling people I've got maritime assets worth millions, using my marina connections to seem more established than you are. His face went pale. Dad, I can explain. Don't. I held up a hand. Just tell me one thing. Is this debt legitimate? Are these actually dangerous people, or is this another one of Jennifer's get-rich-quick schemes that backfired? Jennifer stood up. How dare you? Sit down, I said. Something in my voice made her sit. I'd never used that tone with her before, never had reason to, but I'd used it plenty of times at the marina when weekend drunks got aggressive or when boat owners tried to skip out on repair bills. It was the voice that said, I'm done being polite. Answer the question, I told Ethan. Is this real? He nodded slowly. They're real, Dad. They're very real. Jennifer got the money from a private lender, not a bank. The kind of private lender who has enforcers. Loan sharks, I said. Venture debt specialists, Jennifer corrected automatically. I actually did laugh then, short and bitter. You borrowed money from loan sharks to invest in what? Cryptocurrency, forex trading, some guru's masterclass? Jennifer's silence was answer enough. She thought she could flip it, Ethan said quietly. Turn it into $500,000 in 3 months, but the market crashed. The platform shut down. The money's just gone. I stood up and walked to the window. My apartment overlooked the parking lot. I could see Ethan's BMW parked next to my 15-year-old pickup truck. The contrast said everything about how our lives had diverged. There's something you're not telling me, I said without turning around. If these are really loan sharks, if you've really had 3 weeks, then they've already made threats. They've already made demands. What did they do? They came to the house, Ethan said. His voice was barely audible. 4 days ago. 2 men. They told Jennifer she had 1 week to get the money or they'd start taking payment in other ways. What other ways? They didn't specify. They didn't have to. I turned around. And you waited until the night before the deadline to come to me. We thought we could handle it, Jennifer said again. But her voice had lost its edge. For the first time since entering my apartment, she looked actually scared. You thought you could handle loan sharks, I said. The 2 of you, with no money, bad credit, and no plan. We have a plan now, Ethan said. You. Those 2 words hung in the air like smoke. Me, I repeated. You're our father, Ethan said. You're supposed to help us. That's what family does. I walked back to my chair and sat down. My mind was working through the problem like I work through a boat repair, identifying all the broken parts, all the points of failure, all the ways this could go wrong. Let me make sure I understand, I said slowly. You want me to either sell my house or borrow against it to give you $275,000 by 9 a.m. tomorrow, so you can pay back loan sharks for money that Jennifer gambled away, money that wasn't hers to gamble with, money that you stole from your business partner, and you expect me to believe you'll pay me back someday when your imaginary real estate empire finally materializes. When I laid it out like that, even Ethan looked uncomfortable. It sounds bad when you say it like that, he muttered. It sounds bad because it is bad, I said. It's possibly the stupidest thing I've ever heard, and I once watched a tourist try to start an outboard motor while standing in the water. So you're saying no? Jennifer's voice had turned cold, dangerous. You're going to let your son get hurt because you're too cheap to help? I'm saying this isn't a problem money can solve, I replied. Even if I had that much cash, which I don't, giving it to you would just delay the inevitable. You'd blow it again. You'd find another get-rich-quick scheme, another shortcut, another way to avoid actually working for anything. Jennifer stood up again. You sanctimonious bastard. You sit here in your pathetic little apartment, working your pathetic little job, pretending you're better than us because you never took any risks. You never built anything. You never tried to be anything more than a small-time nobody. And now you're going to lecture us about work? I didn't respond. I just looked at her. Really looked at her, and I saw what I should have seen 3 years ago when Ethan first brought her home. The calculation behind her eyes, the contempt for anyone she considered beneath her, the absolute certainty that she could manipulate anyone into giving her what she wanted. "Get out," I said quietly. "Dad," Ethan started. "Both of you, get out of my house." "We're not leaving until you agree to help," Jennifer said. I stood up. I'm not a large man, 5'10", average build, but I spent 30 years working with my hands, loading equipment, hauling boats, fixing engines. My body knows how to occupy space when it needs to. "You're leaving," I said. "The only question is whether you walk out or I call the police and have you removed for trespassing." "You wouldn't," Ethan said. I pulled out my phone. They left. At the door, Ethan turned back. "They're going to come for me tomorrow, Dad. When I can't pay, they're really going to hurt me. That's on you." "No," I said. "That's on you. You made these choices. You stole that money. You married someone who treats you like an ATM. You built a life on lies and shortcuts. This is just the bill coming due. I'm your son. I know. That's the only reason I didn't call the police the moment you admitted to theft." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he followed Jennifer down the steps to the parking lot. I closed the door, locked it, drew the curtains. Then I stood there in the silence of my apartment and let myself feel the full weight of what had just happened. My son had come to me not for help, but to use me, to mine me for whatever value I had left. And when I refused to be mined, he'd tried guilt and threats and emotional blackmail. 3 years. 3 years I'd believed that Ethan was building something legitimate, that he'd finally found his path, that maybe, just maybe, he'd grown up. But he hadn't grown up. He'd just gotten better at hiding his failures. I walked to the kitchen and opened the drawer where I kept my notebooks. I have 3 of them, one for marina maintenance schedules, one for personal finances, and one that I'd started 6 months ago, the one I'd titled Insurance. Because 6 months ago, I'd started noticing things, small things. The way Ethan mentioned my name at business functions, the way people at the marina started asking me about my son's development projects, the way Jennifer always steered conversations toward how much money I supposedly had saved, how valuable my marina connections were, how useful I could be. I'd started keeping notes, recording conversations, documenting the lies. I'm not a paranoid man, but I'm not a stupid one either. And when someone starts building a story around you, it's smart to know what that story is before they try to use it. I opened the notebook now and flipped through the pages. 6 months of careful observation, 6 months of quiet investigation, 6 months of preparing for a moment I hoped would never come, but it had come. And now I had a choice to make. I could do nothing. Let Ethan face the consequences of his choices. Watch from a distance as his life fell apart. It would be the sensible thing, the safe thing, the thing that didn't make me responsible for fixing a problem I didn't create. Or I could do something else, something I'd been thinking about for months, something that would require perfect timing, perfect execution, and a willingness to burn every bridge I had left. I looked at the clock. 8:23 p.m. If these loan sharks were expecting payment by 9 a.m. tomorrow, that gave me less than 13 hours. 13 hours to disappear. I opened my laptop and started typing. I had lists to make, arrangements to finalize, a timeline to execute. At 9:15 p.m., my phone rang. Ethan. I didn't answer. It rang again at 9:47 p.m. Jennifer this time. I didn't answer. At 10:30 p.m., I received a text message from Ethan. "Dad, please, I'm begging you." I turned off my phone. At 11 p.m., I started packing. Not everything, just the essentials. Clothes, documents, the notebooks, my laptop, the evidence I'd been collecting. At midnight, I walked through my apartment one last time. It wasn't much. 22 years I'd lived here. Raised Ethan here after his mother left. Built a quiet, stable life here. The kind of life that people like Jennifer looked at and saw failure. But I didn't see failure. I saw foundation. I saw preparation. I saw a man who'd learned to be patient and careful and thorough. And now that patience was about to pay off. I sat down at my kitchen table and started writing, by hand, in careful block letters. The kind of letters that couldn't be easily traced back to handwriting analysis if it ever came to that. The letter took me 45 minutes to write. I revised it 3 times. Each word mattered. Each sentence had to land exactly right. When I finished, I folded it carefully and slid it into an envelope. On the outside, in those same block letters, I wrote, "For Ethan and Jennifer, urgent." I placed the envelope on my kitchen counter where they wouldn't be able to miss it. Then I took out a second envelope and placed inside it a single document. Something I'd had prepared 2 months ago, just in case. Something that would explain everything and nothing at the same time. At 1:47 a.m., I locked my apartment door behind me for what I knew would be the last time. My truck was packed, my route was planned, my phone was off. By 2:01 a.m., I was on the highway heading north. By 6:00 a.m., I'd crossed the Canadian border using a secondary route that didn't require passport scans, a trick I'd learned from years of helping Canadian boat owners navigate bureaucracy. By 8 a.m., I was in a small town 200 miles from the border, checking into a motel under a name that wasn't mine. By 9 a.m., the exact moment Ethan's deadline came due, my son and his wife were breaking down my apartment door to find an empty home and 2 envelopes waiting on the counter. I know this because I'd installed a small camera months ago. Hidden, motion activated, streaming to a cloud server. I watched it all happen from my motel room on my laptop. I watched Ethan kick the door open. I watched Jennifer rush to the kitchen. I watched her grab the first envelope and tear it open. I watched her face as she read what I'd written. I watched her start screaming. And I watched Ethan's face go white as he read over her shoulder. Because the envelope didn't contain money. It didn't contain apologies. It didn't contain a map to where I'd hidden savings they could steal. It contained 6 months of documentation, 6 months of lies, 6 months of them using my name, my reputation, my connections to build their house of cards. It contained proof that Ethan had forged my signature on business documents, proof that Jennifer had opened credit cards in my name, proof that they'd been planning this debt trap for months, borrowing money they knew they couldn't pay back, building a scheme where I would be forced to bail them out or watch my son get hurt. It contained recordings of conversations I'd had with Ethan's business partner, the one whose money Jennifer had gambled away, the partner who had no idea Ethan had taken the money, the partner who thought it was still safely in the business account. And it contained one more thing, a letter I'd already sent to that business partner, time-stamped, certified mail, explaining everything. The letter in the envelope was just a copy. The original had been delivered that morning at 8 a.m., 1 hour before Ethan's deadline with the loan sharks. 1 hour before Ethan thought he could pressure me into saving him. From my motel room, I watched my son collapse onto my kitchen floor. I watched Jennifer throw the envelope across the room and start screaming obscenities. I watched them finally understand what I'd done. I hadn't run away to hide. I'd run away to let the truth catch up to them. And the truth was this. Ethan's business partner now knew about the theft. The loan sharks knew they weren't getting their money. And every person Ethan had lied to, every connection he'd used, every business deal he'd built on my false reputation, all of it was about to come crashing down. Not because I'd stopped them, because I'd stopped protecting them. I closed my laptop. The screaming would continue for a while. The panic, the blame, the desperate attempts to fix what couldn't be fixed. But that was their problem now, not mine. I had work to do. As the story unfolds, hit the hype button, like, subscribe, and write in the comments. Would you forgive them or walk away? The motel room smelled like industrial cleaner and old cigarette smoke that had been painted over but never quite eliminated. I sat on the edge of the bed, laptop open, watching the chaos unfold in real time through the camera feed I'd left behind. Ethan was on his phone now, calling someone, probably the business partner, probably trying to get ahead of my letter, probably realizing he was already too late. Jennifer had stopped screaming. She was pacing, 5 steps to the window, 5 steps back. The predator rhythm of someone calculating their next move. I'd seen that rhythm before, at the marina. When boat owners realized they couldn't pay their slip fees and started looking for someone else to blame, looking for a weakness they could exploit, looking for a way to make their problem someone else's responsibility. It never worked. Not at the marina. And it wasn't going to work now. I closed the laptop and lay back on the bed. The ceiling had a water stain shaped vaguely like the state of Nevada. I stared at it and let myself feel nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt. Just the empty calm that comes when you've made a decision and there's no going back. My phone was off. It would stay off for at least 48 hours, maybe longer. I had a burner phone now, paid cash at a gas station, and the only number programmed into it was for a lawyer I'd retained 3 weeks ago. His name was Michael Torres. He specialized in family law and fraud defense. I'd paid him a $5,000 retainer for money I'd been hiding in a separate account for 2 years. Money Ethan didn't know about, money Jennifer had never thought to look for, because they'd made a crucial mistake. They'd assumed I was simple, unsophisticated, too boring and too trusting to see them coming. But I'd spent 30 years dealing with people who thought they could cut corners, who thought they could skip maintenance and hope their engines wouldn't fail, who thought they could lie about damage and blame the marina when their boats sank. I knew what shortcuts looked like. I knew the smell of desperation. I knew the pattern of people who would rather manipulate than work. And I'd seen that pattern in my own son. The worst part? I'd seen it early, 2 years ago. Maybe earlier. But I'd told myself I was being paranoid, being unfair, being a bad father for not trusting my own child. Except I wasn't being paranoid, I was being observant. And there's a difference. I pulled out my regular notebook, not the insurance one, and started writing. I needed to track the next phase. The timeline was critical now. Everything depended on things happening in the right order. Hour 1. Ethan discovers my letter. Complete. Hour 2. Ethan attempts damage control with business partner. In progress. Hour 3. Business partner contacts authorities. Pending. Hour 4. Loan sharks arrive at my apartment looking for me. Pending. Hour 5. Jennifer and Ethan realize I'm not coming back. Pending. Hour 6:24. The collapse accelerates. I'd built this timeline carefully. Each piece had to fall in sequence. If Ethan managed to intercept my letter to his business partner, if Jennifer managed to convince the loan sharks to wait, if any single element went sideways, the whole plan would fall apart. But I'd accounted for that too. I'd sent 3 letters, not 1. The first letter went to Ethan's business partner, certified mail, proof of delivery. The second letter went to the loan sharks themselves, anonymous, explaining exactly where their money had gone and who was responsible, including Jennifer's name, her investment platform, the dates, the amounts, everything they'd need to know that Ethan and Jennifer had played them. The third letter was the one I'd left in my apartment, the one they'd already found, the one that told them about the other 2 letters. So even if Ethan managed to somehow intercept 1 letter, he couldn't stop all 3. The damage was already done. The information was already out there, and there was nothing they could do to put it back. My burner phone rang. Only one person had this number. Torres, I answered. Mr. Palmer. His voice was calm, professional. I've received confirmation. Your letter was delivered to Vincent Reeves at 8:47 a.m. He signed for it personally. Vincent Reeves, Ethan's business partner, the man whose money was missing. Did he call you? I asked. Not yet, but he will. I made sure my card was in the envelope along with your letter. I expect to hear from him within the hour. What about the police? That depends on Mr. Reeves. If he files a report, they'll be involved. If he decides to handle this privately, they won't. But either way, your son is going to have to explain where $275,000 went. And me? You're protected. I've documented everything. The forged signatures, the unauthorized credit cards, the use of your name without permission. If your son tries to claim you were involved in his scheme, we have evidence that you were a victim, not a participant. Good. Mr. Palmer, Torres said carefully, are you sure about this? Once this process starts, there's no stopping it. Your son could face criminal charges. Your daughter-in-law definitely will. This is going to destroy their lives. They destroyed their own lives, I said. I'm just making sure they don't destroy mine in the process. Silence on the line. All right, Torres finally said. I'll call you when Reeves contacts me. He hung up. I checked the camera feed again. Ethan and Jennifer were still in my apartment. But now there was a third person with them. A man I didn't recognize. Large, professional-looking. Not the kind of professional who works in an office. The loan shark's enforcer. I turned up the volume on the laptop. The camera had audio, too, though it was muffled. Don't have it, Ethan was saying. My father was supposed to... Your father isn't here, the enforcer interrupted. His voice was calm, almost bored. So, that's not my problem. My problem is that you owe Mrs. Castellano $275,000 and you don't have it. We'll get it, Jennifer said quickly. We just need more time. You had 3 weeks. That was the time. My father will help, Ethan said desperately. He's angry right now, but he'll come around. He has to. I'm his son. The enforcer smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Lady Castellano doesn't care about your family drama. She cares about her money. We'll pay interest, Jennifer offered. Double interest, triple, whatever she wants. She wants the principal. Today. We don't have it today. The enforcer's smile disappeared. Then we have a problem. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Spoke quietly. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I could see Ethan's face going progressively paler. The enforcer hung up. You have 48 hours, he said. Not to get the money, to get collateral, property, assets. Something Mrs. Castellano can hold while you figure out how to pay her back. What kind of assets? Ethan asked. This apartment, for starters. The enforcer looked around at my modest living room. It's not worth $275,000, but it's a start. It's not mine, Ethan said quickly. It's my father's. Then sign it over. Power of attorney. Whatever you need to do. I can't. I don't have power of attorney, and he's gone. He won't answer his phone. The enforcer's expression didn't change. That sounds like a you problem. What happens if we can't get collateral? Jennifer asked quietly. The enforcer looked at her for a long moment. Mrs. Castellano will collect her debt in other ways you won't enjoy. He left. The apartment fell silent except for the sound of Jennifer's breathing. Fast, panicked. Call him again, she told Ethan. Keep calling until he answers. He's not going to answer. Then go find him. Go to the marina. Go to his bank. Go to wherever he goes. Find him. I don't think he wants to be found, Ethan said quietly. I don't care what he wants. Jennifer's voice rose to a shriek. This is his fault. He did this to us. He left us here to face these people alone. We did this to ourselves, Ethan said. Jennifer slapped him. The sound cracked through the audio feed like a gunshot. Don't you dare, she hissed. Don't you dare try to put this on us. We didn't force your father to run. We didn't force him to send those letters. We asked him for help like family is supposed to do, and he chose to abandon us. He chose to leave us here to die. We're not going to die, Ethan said, but he didn't sound convinced. You don't know that. You heard that man. You saw his face. These people don't make threats they don't follow through on. Then we go to the police. And tell them what? That we borrowed money from loan sharks and can't pay it back? That'll go great. They'll arrest us for fraud before they even talk to the loan sharks. Dad sent evidence to Vincent Reeves, Ethan said. Evidence that we took his money. Vincent's going to go to the police anyway. We're already done. Jennifer went very still. What evidence? The letter said Dad had recordings, statements, proof that we stole from the business account. That's not possible. We were careful. Dad's been watching us for months. He knew Jennifer. He knew what we were doing, and he documented everything. Jennifer sat down slowly on my old couch. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked lost. Actually lost. Not angry, not calculating, just lost. Why? She whispered. Why would he do this? We're family. I don't think he sees it that way anymore, Ethan said. I closed the laptop. I'd seen enough. They were starting to understand. Not the full scope yet. That would take time, but the basics. They were trapped. The loan sharks wanted their money. The business partner knew about the theft. The police would be involved soon, and I was gone. Everything they'd built was collapsing, and there was no one left to save them. I stood up and walked to the motel window. The parking lot was mostly empty, a few cars, a semi-truck idling in the far corner, normal highway stop scene, nobody looking for me, nobody who would recognize me even if they were. Because here's what Ethan and Jennifer hadn't understood. I'd been planning this for months. This wasn't a panic move. This wasn't running scared. This was a strategic withdrawal. I had money saved, not in my regular bank account. They'd checked that, I'm sure. But in accounts they didn't know about. Small amounts, built up over time, hidden in plain sight through careful, patient accumulation. I had identification they didn't know about. Nothing illegal. Just documents that allowed me to move around without leaving obvious trails. A P.O. box in Vancouver I'd maintained for 3 years. A credit card under my mother's maiden name that I'd gotten before she passed. Legal gray areas that weren't fraud, but weren't exactly transparent either. And I had leverage they hadn't expected, because while they'd been using my name to build their schemes, I'd been using my position at the marina to build something else, a network. Boat owners talk. They talk about business, about money, about deals both legal and not quite legal. And when you're the guy who maintains their boats, who keeps their secrets about where they really were when they told their spouses they were fishing, who doesn't judge when they show up drunk or with someone who isn't their wife, they trust you. They tell you things. And over 30 years, I'd accumulated a lot of things people had told me, including some things about Vincent Reeves, like the fact that his real estate development business wasn't as clean as it appeared, that he'd cut corners on safety inspections, that he'd bribed building officials, that he had his own pile of secrets he didn't want exposed. I'd included some of those secrets in my letter to him, not as threats, just as context. A reminder that while Ethan had stolen from him, Reeves wasn't exactly innocent himself. A suggestion that maybe handling this quietly, without involving authorities who might start digging into Reeves's own business practices, would be in everyone's best interest. In other words, I'd given Reeves a choice. He could go after Ethan publicly and risk his own exposure, or he could pursue this privately and keep everyone's secrets buried. I was betting he'd choose privacy. And if he did, that meant no police report, no criminal investigation. Just Reeves quietly squeezing Ethan and Jennifer for repayment, while they slowly realized they had no way to pay him back. The loan sharks were a different problem. They didn't care about exposure. They didn't care about legality. They just wanted their money. But I'd given them something too. Information. My letter to them had explained exactly how Jennifer's investment scheme worked. The name of the platform, the name of the broker who'd sold her on it, and most importantly, the fact that the broker had been running a scam, that Jennifer wasn't the only victim, that there were dozens of other people who'd lost money the same way. I'd suggested they might want to look into that broker, suggested that recovering some of their money from him might be more productive than squeezing it out of two broke people who clearly had nothing left. Would it work? Maybe, maybe not. But it gave the loan sharks an option that wasn't just beating money out of Ethan and Jennifer. And options create hesitation. Hesitation creates delays. Delays create opportunities for my son and his wife to figure out how deep in the hole they really were. My phone buzzed. The burner phone. Torres. Reeves called, he said. He's not involving the police. What's he doing instead? He wants a meeting with your son. Private. He says they can work something out. Which means? Which means he's going to demand repayment on his own terms. Probably with interest. Probably with penalties. And if your son can't pay, Reeves will own him. Can Ethan pay? Not unless he suddenly discovers a hidden fortune. From what I understand, he's leveraged to the ceiling. The house is mortgaged, the cars are leased, the business is underwater. He's got nothing liquid. So Reeves will bleed him dry. Slowly, methodically, for years. I thought about that. About Ethan spending the next decade working not for himself, but to pay back money he'd stolen. About Jennifer watching her dreams of easy wealth evaporate. About both of them finally learning that shortcuts have costs. And me? I asked. You're clear. Reeves doesn't blame you. He understands you're a victim here. I made sure of that. Thank you. Mr. Palmer, Torres said carefully, I have to ask, what are you going to do now? What do you mean? I mean, you've blown up your son's life. You've disappeared. You've protected yourself legally. But you can't stay disappeared forever. Eventually, you'll have to surface. Come back. And when you do, your son is going to be there. This isn't over. I know, I said. So what's the end game? I looked out at the parking lot again, at the empty highway beyond, at the vast stretch of nothing between here and there. I don't have an end game, I said. I just have the next move. Which is? I'll let you know when I figure it out. I hung up. The truth was, Torres was right. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I'd hurt Ethan and Jennifer, exposed them, cut off their escape routes. But they were still out there, still dangerous in their own way. And they knew I existed. Sooner or later, they'd come looking for me. Not to reconcile, not to apologize, but to punish, to blame, to make me pay for not saving them. And when they came, I needed to be ready. I opened my laptop again and started making notes. Not about what had already happened, about what came next. The second phase. The part of the plan I hadn't told Torres about because lawyers get nervous when you talk about things that aren't strictly legal. I had 48 hours before the loan sharks came back to Ethan and Jennifer. 48 hours before they realized collateral wasn't enough, before they started looking for other ways to collect. And I intended to use those 48 hours to make sure that when they did come looking, they'd find something interesting, something that would shift their focus, something that would make them realize Ethan and Jennifer weren't the only ones who'd been played. I started typing. Red Deer, Alberta was larger than Clearwater, but still had that small city feel. Wide streets, low buildings, the kind of place where people knew their neighbors and strangers stood out. I arrived at 9 a.m. and found the library Torres had mentioned. It was closed, didn't open until 10, but the parking lot gave me a good view of the street. I waited in my truck, watching traffic, looking for gray sedans or anyone who seemed too interested in the library parking lot. Nothing unusual, just normal morning activity, people heading to work, school buses, delivery trucks. At 9:45, a black SUV pulled into the lot. Torres got out, carrying a briefcase and looking around like a lawyer who'd driven 3 hours to meet a client who might not show up. I climbed out of my truck. You look like hell, Torres said when he saw me. I've been sleeping in motels and eating diner food for a week. Whose fault is that? Fair point. We went inside the library when it opened and found a quiet corner in the reference section. Torres opened his briefcase and pulled out a legal pad. Tell me exactly what Reeves said. I showed him the text messages. Torres read them, frowning. He wants to talk about what comes next. That's vague. Deliberately vague. And he claims he can make this stop. That's even more vague. What do you think it means? Could mean anything. Could mean he'll drop the civil suit if you cooperate. Could mean he'll work with you to pressure the loan sharks. Could mean he wants to make a deal where everybody gets something. Or it's a trap. He gets you in a room, records you saying something incriminating, uses it to implicate you in your son's schemes. I'm not part of those schemes. We know that. But if he can make it look like you are, it helps his case, makes you a hostile witness, discredits anything you might testify about. I thought about that, about walking into a diner and finding Reeves with a recording device, about saying something that could be twisted into evidence against me. So what do we do? I asked. We record too. I'll be there. Not at your table. That'll spook him, but nearby, close enough to hear. And I'll have my phone recording the whole time. Is that legal? In Canada, one-party consent. As long as one person in the conversation knows about the recording, it's legal, and you'll know. What if he searches me? He won't. This is a public place, a diner. He's not going to start patting you down in front of witnesses. Torres was probably right, but I'd learned to expect the unexpected. We spent the next hour preparing. Torres walked me through what to say, what not to say, how to deflect questions I didn't want to answer. He was good at this, better than I'd expected. I'd hired him because he specialized in family law, but he was showing me his criminal defense training now. Remember, he said, you're there to listen, not to negotiate, not to make promises, just to understand what he wants. Get the information, thank him, leave. What if he asks me to do something? Tell him you'll think about it. Don't commit to anything. Don't even hint that you might cooperate. And if he threatens me, then we leave immediately and file a police report. He won't threaten me. He's too smart for that. Probably, but people under pressure do stupid things. We left the library at 11 and drove separately to the diner. It was called the Prairie Rose, which sounded more romantic than it was. Just a standard roadside restaurant with a gravel parking lot and a flashing open sign. Torres parked at the far end. I parked closer to the entrance. We'd agreed he'd come in 5 minutes after me and sit at the counter where he could see my booth. I checked my watch. 11:57. 3 minutes early. Good. Let Reeves wait. I walked in at exactly noon. The diner was half full, lunch crowd just starting, families, truckers, a group of construction workers in the back corner, and Vincent Reeves sitting alone in a booth by the window. I'd seen pictures of him online during my research. Mid-50s, gray hair cut short, expensive suit that looked out of place in a restaurant like this. The kind of man who was used to being the most powerful person in any room. He stood when he saw me, extended his hand. I didn't shake it. Mr. Palmer, he said, thank you for coming. I'm here. That's all you asked for. Please, sit. I slid into the booth across from him. The vinyl seat was patched with duct tape. The table wobbled slightly. Reeves looked uncomfortable in the setting, like a king visiting peasant territory. Can I order you something? He asked. Coffee? Lunch? Coffee. He signaled the waitress. She brought 2 cups and left. So, Reeves said, we have a situation. We do? Your son stole $275,000 from me. Your daughter-in-law gambled it away. They're both facing criminal charges. And you've disappeared, which makes this whole thing more complicated. How does my being gone make it complicated? Because you're the only person who can help fix this. I sipped my coffee. It was terrible. Too bitter. Too weak. Perfect diner coffee. How? I asked. Reeves leaned forward. Your son has nothing. His house is underwater. His business is bankrupt. His wife is in jail. He can't pay me back what he owes, but you can. I don't have $275,000. No, but you have leverage. What kind of leverage? You have your son's trust, or you did. You can convince him to cooperate, to work with me instead of against me. Cooperate how? He has information I need, names of other investors, details about projects, access to accounts. If he gives me what I need, I can recover some of my losses from other sources. Not all of it, but enough that I might be willing to settle the debt for less. I looked at Reeves, really looked at him, saw the calculation behind his eyes, the same calculation I'd seen in Jennifer's eyes. You want me to pressure my son into betraying his other business partners, I said. I want you to encourage him to make smart choices. By throwing other people under the bus. By facing reality. Your son is going down. There's no avoiding that. The question is how many other people go down with him. If he cooperates, maybe some of those people can be protected. If he doesn't... Reeves shrugged. Then everyone burns. Everyone except you. I've already burned. $275,000 burned. But I can minimize the damage. And so can your son. If he's smart... I drank more coffee, thought about what Reeves was really asking. Not for money, for betrayal. For Ethan to become an informant, a snitch, someone who traded information for mercy. "What's in it for me?" I asked. "You get your son back. Not in jail, not destroyed, maybe supervised probation, community service, a chance to rebuild. And if I don't help?" Reeves's expression hardened. "Then I make sure he gets the maximum sentence. I make sure every crime he committed gets prosecuted. I make sure everyone he ever conned gets their day in court. Your son will be 70 before he sees freedom again." There it was, the threat under the reasonable tone. "You can't guarantee any of that," I said. "No, but I have influence. Prosecutors listen to victims, especially wealthy victims. And I'm very wealthy." "So this is blackmail?" "This is reality. Your son made his bed. Now he gets to sleep in it. Unless you help him make it more comfortable." I looked past Reeves toward the counter. Torres was there, sitting 2 stools down from a trucker, his phone on the counter in front of him, recording everything. "I'll think about it," I said. "Don't think too long. Jennifer's trial starts in 6 weeks. Once she testifies, everything comes out, including things about your son that might surprise you." "Like what?" Reeves smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "Like the fact that he's been planning to pin this whole thing on you." I felt something cold in my chest. "Explain." "Jennifer's defense strategy is simple. Claims she was coerced, manipulated, forced into this by her husband and his father. She'll say you masterminded the whole scheme, that Ethan was your accomplice, that she was just an innocent victim caught in a family con. That's insane. Is it? You disappeared the night before the loan sharks came. You left behind evidence that implicated them, but not you. You've been untraceable for a week. From a certain angle, it looks like you planned this. Used your son as a patsy. Set up Jennifer to take the fall. No jury will believe that. Maybe not, but it'll create doubt. And doubt is all she needs to avoid the worst charges." I gripped my coffee cup hard enough to hurt. "Ethan knows the truth. Ethan will do whatever it takes to save himself, including throwing you under the bus if it means a lighter sentence." "You're lying." "Am I? Ask yourself. Why hasn't he called you? Why hasn't he tried to meet? Why hasn't he begged you to come back and clear his name?" Because he had called. Once, Torres had arranged it, and Ethan had blamed me, had told me this was all my fault, but that didn't mean he'd testify against me, did it? "I need proof," I said. Reeves pulled out his phone, scrolled, showed me a document. It was a motion filed by Jennifer's attorney, requesting that I be added as a defendant in the case, claiming I had material involvement in the fraudulent scheme. I read it twice. Then I looked at Reeves. "This doesn't prove Ethan's cooperating." "No, but it shows the strategy. And trust me, Ethan's lawyer is considering the same approach. Father and son together, both claiming the other one was in charge, both trying to minimize their own role. I won't let that happen. Then help me, work with me, we'll get ahead of their strategy. Present the real story. Make sure the truth comes out." "The truth being?" "That Ethan is a con artist who used everyone around him, including you. That Jennifer is a gambling addict who destroyed their lives. That you're a victim who tried to protect yourself. That's the truth, isn't it?" It was, mostly. Except for the part where I'd deliberately blown up their lives, where I'd contacted all their victims, where I'd disappeared specifically to let the consequences unfold. But Reeves didn't need to know that part. "I'll talk to my lawyer," I said. "You do that. But Palmer?" Reeves leaned forward. "Time is running out. In 6 weeks, this all becomes public. Every dirty detail, every scheme, every lie. And when it does, you'll be standing in the middle of it whether you want to be or not." He stood up, dropped a 20 on the table for the coffee we'd barely touched. "I'll be in touch," he said. "Think about what I said. Think about whether you want to be the victim or the villain." He walked out. I sat there for another minute, let my hands stop shaking, let my breathing steady. Torres came over and slid into the booth. "Did you get all that?" I asked. "Every word. Audio's clear." "What do you think?" "I think he's telling the truth about Jennifer's strategy. I've seen those kinds of motions before. They're fishing, trying to find someone else to blame." "And Ethan?" "Hard to say. He might cooperate with that strategy, or he might not. But the fact that it's even possible tells you how bad things are. So, what do I do?" "You come back. You surface. You get ahead of this before they can spin it. If I come back, I lose my leverage." "What leverage? You're already disappeared, already separated from them. Coming back doesn't change that." It makes me available, makes me a target again. You're already a target, Palmer. This meeting proved it. Reeves found you. If he could do it, others can too. Better to face this on your terms than to keep running and let them control the narrative. I knew he was right, knew that staying disappeared only worked if nobody could find me. And clearly people could find me, but I wasn't ready, not yet. Give me until after Jennifer's trial, I said. Let her strategy play out. Let Ethan decide whether he's going to support it or not. Then I'll decide what to do. 6 weeks is a long time. I'll manage. And if Reeves comes after you again, then I'll deal with it. Torres shook his head. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Maybe, but it's my choice. We paid for the coffee and left. Torres headed back towards Seattle. I headed northwest, deeper into Alberta. That night, in another motel room in another small town, I reviewed the recording Torres had sent me, listened to Reeves's voice, his threats, his promises, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to let Ethan and Jennifer turn me into the villain. Wasn't going to let them rewrite history to make me the mastermind. But I also wasn't going to cooperate with Reeves, wasn't going to pressure Ethan into betraying his partners, wasn't going to become part of the same cycle of manipulation they'd been running for years. Instead, I was going to do something else, something that would make the truth impossible to hide, something that would force everyone, Ethan, Jennifer, Reeves, the loan sharks, the victims, to see exactly what had happened and who was responsible. I opened my laptop and started writing again. Not a letter this time, a statement, detailed, comprehensive. Everything I knew about Ethan's business dealings, about Jennifer's gambling, about Reeves's corner cutting, about all of it. And when I finished, I sent it to every news outlet in Seattle, every investigative journalist I could find, every reporter who covered business fraud and family crime. Let them write the story, let them dig into the details. Let the truth come out not through courtroom manipulation, but through public exposure. Because the one thing con artists hate more than consequences is publicity. And I was about to give them all the publicity they could handle. The story broke 3 days later. Seattle family fraud scandal exposes web of deception. That was the headline in the Seattle Times. The article ran 6 pages. It had everything. Names, dates, details, interviews with victims, financial records, even screenshots from the group chat I'd started. I read it from a motel room in Grande Prairie, drinking terrible coffee and watching the fallout in real time through my laptop. The victim's lawyer had given a press conference. 31 people standing on the courthouse steps talking about how they'd been conned, how they'd lost money, lost trust, lost faith in the system that was supposed to protect them. One of them mentioned me. David Palmer tried to warn us, she said. He gave us the information we needed to see the truth. If it wasn't for him, we'd still be in the dark. That wasn't quite accurate. I hadn't warned them. I'd just given them evidence and let them draw their own conclusions, but I wasn't going to argue with someone who was on my side. The reporter had reached out to Ethan for comment. He'd refused. His lawyer had issued a statement. My client maintains his innocence and looks forward to his day in court. Jennifer's lawyer had issued a different statement. Ms. Palmer was manipulated by her father-in-law and husband into participating in schemes she didn't understand. She is a victim, not a perpetrator. So Reeves had been right. They were already trying to pin it on me, but the reporter hadn't bought it. The article made it clear that I was the one who'd exposed the fraud, not participated in it, that I'd left to protect myself, not to escape justice. The story had legs. By the end of the day, it was picked up by national outlets. CNN ran a piece, so did NPR. Even some international papers covered it. My phone, the burner, started ringing. Reporters who'd somehow found my number, I didn't answer. Just let it ring and ring and ring. Torres called on the second day. Have you seen the coverage? He asked. I started it. You what? I sent the information to the reporters. Figured if the truth was going to come out anyway, might as well control how. Torres was silent for a long moment. That was incredibly stupid. Why? Because now you're part of the story. Your face is all over the news. People know you're out there. And everyone who wants to find you, the victims, the loan sharks, the prosecutors, your son, now has a fresh trail to follow. Let them follow it. Palmer, this isn't a game. I know it's not a game, but I'm tired of hiding. Tired of letting other people control the narrative. This way, everyone knows the truth. Everyone knows I was the victim, not the villain. They also know you're the one who destroyed your son's life. He destroyed his own life. I just documented it. The public doesn't always see the distinction. Then the public is wrong. Torres sighed. Where are you? Doesn't matter. It matters if someone's tracking you, if the loan sharks decide you're a problem, if I can handle myself. Can you? Because from where I'm sitting, you've done everything possible to paint a target on your back. Maybe he was right, but I'd learned something over the past week and a half. Fear is only useful if you let it control you. Once you stop being afraid, stop worrying about consequences, stop caring what people think, you become very hard to intimidate. And I'd stopped caring. I'll call you in a few days, I told Torres. Palmer. I hung up. The next morning, I checked out of the motel and drove east, toward Saskatchewan, toward nothing in particular, just away. The roads were empty, flat prairie stretching to the horizon, the kind of landscape that makes you feel small and insignificant in a way that's oddly comforting. I stopped for gas in a town called Medicine Hat. While the pump ran, I checked my email on my phone. 47 new messages. Most from reporters, a few from people claiming to be victims, one from someone claiming to be a producer for a true crime podcast, and one from an address I didn't recognize. Subject line: We need to talk about your son. I almost deleted it. Almost didn't want to know, but I opened it. Mr. Palmer, my name is Anthony Castellano. I believe you know why I'm contacting you. My mother loaned your daughter-in-law a significant sum of money. That money has not been returned. I understand from recent news coverage that you are not responsible for this debt. However, I believe we may be able to help each other. Please call me at your earliest convenience. Below that was a phone number, Anthony Castellano, son of the loan shark. The enforcer who'd visited my apartment. He wanted to talk. I should have deleted the message, should have blocked the number, should have done literally anything except what I did next. I called him. Mr. Palmer, he answered on the first ring. Thank you for calling. What do you want? To clear up some misunderstandings. My mother believed your son would repay her. He did not. That puts us in a difficult position. Your problem is with my son, not me. Agreed, which is why I'm calling you. To make sure there are no complications. What kind of complications? The kind where someone gets hurt because of confusion about who owes what to whom. A threat. Polite, veiled, but a threat. I don't owe your mother anything, I said. I know, and I want to keep it that way. But recent news coverage has created some questions. Some people in our organization believe you might have been involved in your son's schemes, that you might have profited. I didn't. I believe you, but belief isn't proof. What I need is something concrete, something I can show my mother and her associates to confirm you're not a target. Like what? Documentation, financial records, proof that you didn't receive any of the money your daughter-in-law borrowed, proof that you've been keeping yourself separate. I already gave that information to the authorities. I'm not the authorities. I watched the gas pump numbers climb. Regular unleaded. 1.47 per liter. Numbers that meant nothing but were easier to focus on than the conversation I was having. What happens if I don't give you this proof? I asked. Then my associates will have to verify your story through other means that might be uncomfortable for you. More threats. Clarification. Mr. Palmer, I don't want to hurt you. You seem like a reasonable man who got caught in someone else's mess. But I need to protect my mother's interests. And right now, that means making sure you're not hiding assets that should go toward paying her debt. I'm not. Then prove it. Send me copies of your financial records for the past 3 years. Bank statements, tax returns, anything that shows you've been living modestly and haven't received any unusual deposits. And if I do that, you leave me alone? Yes. How do I know you'll keep your word? Because unlike your son, I don't lie to people. I tell them exactly what I'm going to do, and then I do it. It's better for business. There was something oddly honest about that. Criminal, but honest. I'll send you what I have, I said, but it's going to take time to compile. You have 48 hours. That's not enough. It'll have to be. After 48 hours, my associates start asking harder questions. He hung up. I stood there at the gas pump, hand still on the nozzle, even though the tank was full, and tried to process what had just happened. The loan sharks were threatening me, not directly, not violently, but making it clear that I needed to prove my innocence or face consequences. And the worst part? They were right to be suspicious. Because I had been involved. Not in the theft, not in the gambling, but in the exposure, in the systematic destruction of Ethan and Jennifer's lives, in the creation of the chaos they were all trying to navigate. I was the spark that started the fire, and now everyone was getting burned. I got back in my truck and drove to a shopping center, found a library, used their computers to compile what Castellano wanted. Bank statements going back 3 years, tax returns. Every financial record I had that showed I was exactly what I claimed to be. A marina manager living paycheck to paycheck with modest savings and no hidden wealth. It took me 6 hours. By the time I finished, the library was closing. I sent everything to Castellano's email address with a simple message. As requested, I hope this settles the matter. His reply came back in minutes. Reviewed, satisfactory. You're clear. Good luck with your son. That was it. No apology for the threat. No acknowledgement that he just extorted financial information from me. Just a business-like confirmation that I was no longer a target. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I just felt tired. I drove to another motel, this one in Swift Current, Saskatchewan. Paid cash, went to my room, lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling. The water stain here looked like Australia. My regular phone, the one I'd turned off a week ago, was in my truck. I'd been checking it once a day to see if there were any messages that mattered. Tonight, there were 3 voicemails. The first was from Ethan. Dad, I saw the news. I know you think you're helping by going public, but you're not. You're making everything worse. Please call me. We need to talk. The second was from a reporter. Mr. Palmer, I'd love to get your side of the story. Your son and daughter-in-law are painting a very different picture from the one you've presented. Call me back and let's set up an interview. The third was from someone I didn't recognize. David Palmer. This is Detective Sarah Cormack with the Seattle Police Department. I need to speak with you regarding an ongoing investigation. Please contact me at your earliest convenience. Police. They were looking for me now, not because I'd done anything wrong, but because I was a witness, a victim, someone who could testify. But if I talked to them, if I gave a statement, I'd have to surface, have to come back, have to face everything I'd been avoiding. I deleted all 3 voicemails. Tomorrow I'd drive further east. Maybe Manitoba, maybe Ontario. Maybe I'd just keep driving until I ran out of country. But tonight, I just needed to sleep. I closed my eyes and let the exhaustion take me. And I dreamed about water stains that looked like continents, islands, escape routes leading nowhere.